Now, this is our GCMS instrument. This is the gas chromatograph part, and this is the mass spectrometer detector. The GC is the exact same as the other GC that we have over here. This one is not running, so I can show you a little bit more about it. So this is the injector port, and then the oven. This is the chromatography column. All right, so it is a capillary column, so you can see how thin this is, and the column that we're using is actually 15 meters long. So it's all wound up around and around. So very, very long path for the sample to travel through. Helium is the carrier gas, and the GC looks the same, except it's much hotter, so it's running at 75 degrees. We can see some information here. We could look at the oven. So its initial temperature, it ramps up to 130 degrees, and then it ramps up to 250 degrees for a total runtime of 9 minutes. So there's more information that we can see here. Okay. Now, if we look at the software itself, we have a sample-loaded T-butyl cyclohexanol stereoisomers, and that is set up with a particular ramp rate and temperatures and things like that to give us the separation that we need. So to run a sample, I'm going to, up here it looks like a little vial, and if you hover by it, it says inject single sample. I'm going to click on that. So our sample name, the sample that I'm using was supplied by Joseph, and this is the text product. Okay. I make sure that it is saving into the Chem104 T-butyl cyclohexanol. That's fine. And then I just say inject. So that doesn't actually do an injection. That just gets you ready to do an injection. So it actually downloads the method again, and now that it's all set, it shows ready. Up here, it shows that it is waiting because it's waiting for you to actually inject. So up here on the screen, we also have the ready light on. So this is the injection port. And the whole platform, this little three-prong platform here, the whole platform lowers, and then that signals the start of the particular chromatographic run. All right, so to get my sample ready, now that the instrument is ready, I got to get my sample ready. Just to be sure, I'm going to rinse it a few times with the solvent. So this is what the sample was dissolved in, cyclohexane. This is a 10 microliter syringe, so that's a very small volume. It's easier to just spit it out onto a Kim wipe so that you can see if you're actually getting stuff, to make sure that your syringe is not clogged. So this is the sample. Now, to get ready for the sample, we need to keep in mind the conditions of the injector port. So the injector port is at 250 degrees, and that is to vaporize the sample right away. But we don't want to vaporize the sample, well, we don't want the injection port to heat up the needle and then to heat up our sample in the syringe. So we're going to put in a little air cushion. So first of all, I'm going to rinse the syringe with a little bit of the sample. Okay. And now, when we're just out in air, I'm going to draw up the plunger. So I like to hold it with my thumb and middle finger, with my thumb and ring finger, and then use my pointer and middle finger to draw up the syringe. to draw up the plunger, sorry. So I draw up the plunger until I can see that the bottom of the plunger is at 2 microliters. So I can't see that there's air in there, that's okay. And now I make sure that the needle's down in the solution, and I pull up the plunger until the bottom of the plunger is at 3 microliters. So that means I got 1. And then I pull up 2 more microliters of an air cushion. Right? Now, when I'm getting ready to inject, I hold it, now thumb and middle finger, and then I hold my other finger above the plunger, because if the needle gets heated and then that starts to heat up and then expand the sample, that would push against the plunger, so my finger is here ready to stop it, but also it's ready to inject. So I use my left hand to help guide the needle. I'm trying to be careful not to touch this, but I don't want to bend the needle. So it goes in a little bit, and then there's a septum, so you got to push a little bit harder, and then you take the barrel all the way down to the bottom, push down, pull out the whole thing. Right, so you push down the barrel to push down the platform, insert the plunger, and then draw out the entire thing. And now this shows that it's running, and you also have the little guy here running, so that is all set. On here, this also shows that the chromatogram is running. So finally, I'm going to rinse out the syringe with a few more portions of cyclohexane, and then the syringe will be ready for the next person to use. Although you always want to leave it ready for the next person, but then when you're the next person, you never want to trust the last person. So still rinse it a few times with the solvent, and then rinse it a few times with your sample. So we are approaching the end of our run, so coming up on 8 minutes. And if we look at the screen, we can see our chromatogram. And so we do have 2 separate peaks, which obviously are not equal intensity, but that looks good. So we're looking at time, the retention time in minutes, and then this is counts, which just indicates the intensity, so how many ions reached the detector. So now that the sample is done, the oven is starting to cool back down, so that humming on top of all the other background humming is the oven starting to, is the cooling system, okay? So this now shows the newest sample, which I had Joseph G. So if I click on this, I can just tell it to print the standard MS report, and so that is going to print to the computer in 331B. Or I could click here on View Edit, the mass spec chromatogram, and so this is what I get. The instrument, once it gets back down to the oven temperature, then it will stabilize for a minute, and then it will show that it is ready for the next person. It says it's not ready. Yep, here it says not ready. Just a second ago it said stabilizing, but now it's ready, and so the next student can prepare their sample. So again, you start with the inject icon, the little vial icon, enter the name, and then click inject, and then prepare to load your sample. And that's what you need to know.